Your eyes open and you're still lying there, not quite ready to move. Then you swing your legs over the side of the bed and stand up in one motion, the way you've done thousands of times before. And just for a second, the room tilts. A wave of dizziness, gone almost as fast as it came. You blink, you steady yourself, and you go on with your morning. Most people brush that off completely, but that little moment might be your body trying to flag something about the next few hours. Cardiologists actually have a name for this stretch of time. The first few hours after you wake up, they call it a high alert window for your heart. So in this video, we're going to dig into exactly what's happening inside your body during that window and the specific morning habits that quietly raise your risk during it. And more importantly, what you can do instead. While you're still asleep, your body's already getting ready for the day ahead. Right before you wake up, it releases a surge of stress hormones, things like cortisol and adrenaline. That surge raises your blood pressure, it speeds up your heart rate, and it makes your platelets, the part of your blood responsible for clotting, stickier than they are at any other point in the day. Think of it like a store's security system quietly arming itself before the doors even open for the day. Nothing's happened yet, but everything's switched on and ready to react, whether there's an actual threat or not. For most people, this is just a normal part of waking up, nothing to worry about. But if you've got underlying heart disease, even heart disease you don't know about yet, that same biological shift can be exactly what turns a vulnerable artery into a real emergency. The numbers back this up. From 6 in the morning until noon, heart attack risk runs about 40% higher than during the rest of the day. And that risk is highest specifically in the first 3 hours after you wake. Cardiac death risk actually peaks between 7 and 11 in the morning. Heart attacks that happen in that window tend to be worse too. One study found they caused about 20% more damage to the heart muscle than ones happening later in the day. This is worth sitting with for a second, especially if you're already managing some kind of heart risk. Heart disease has been the leading cause of death in the United States since 1921. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 900,000 Americans died from cardiovascular disease in 2023 alone, roughly one person every 34 seconds. Now, this isn't medical advice, and your own risk depends entirely on your own history. Your doctor's the one who can actually tell you what these numbers mean for you specifically. But getting a handle on what's going on in that morning window is the first step to protecting yourself during it. Here's something that happens to plenty of people, and most never connect it to their heart at all. You stand up quickly after lying down, and for a moment, everything goes a little woozy. That's called orthostatic hypotension, a sudden drop in blood pressure that happens when you stand up too fast. When you're lying down, blood spreads out pretty evenly through your body. The second you stand, gravity pulls that blood down toward your legs, and your blood pressure has to scramble to catch up. In a younger body, that correction happens almost instantly. As we get older though, the reflexes responsible for that quick adjustment can get a little slower to respond. It's a bit like an old elevator that takes just a second longer to catch up to the floor you actually pressed. The mechanism still works, it's just not as fast as it used to be. This isn't some rare thing either. It affects about 5% of people under 50, but as many as 20% of people 70 and older. And it shows up more often and more severely in the morning specifically because your blood pressure is already at its lowest point, right when you wake up. Research has found that people with this condition have a higher future risk of heart attack, heart failure, and stroke compared to people without it. And the effect gets worse depending on your situation that particular morning. In one study, standing up after a normal night caused blood pressure to drop by about 9 points. But standing up after a longer stretch without food or water, that drop nearly doubled to about 14 points. The fix here is almost embarrassingly simple. Before you stand up in the morning, sit on the edge of the bed for about a minute. Flex your ankles, pump your legs up and down a few times. That small bit of movement helps your circulation catch up to where it needs to be before gravity asks it to do all the work at once. If you live somewhere that gets snow, this next part might be the most important thing in this whole video. Shoveling snow is, physically, one of the most demanding things plenty of older adults do all winter. And it's almost always done first thing in the morning in cold air with zero warm-up. According to a Cleveland Clinic cardiologist, the intensity of shoveling is comparable to hitting peak exertion on a cardiac stress test. A recent Mayo Clinic review found that just 10 minutes of heavy snow shoveling can push your heart to roughly 97% of its max rate. Add the cold on top of that, and the danger compounds. Cold temperatures cause your blood vessels to narrow, which means your heart has to work that much harder just to push blood through them. After one major snowstorm, researchers in Canada found that the risk of hospitalization for heart attack in men rose by 16%, and the risk of death by heart attack rose by 34%. There's also something most people have honestly never heard of, called the Valsalva maneuver. It happens when you strain hard and hold your breath at the same time, the same thing your body does during a tough bowel movement. A lot of people do this completely without realizing it while lifting a heavy shovelful of snow, and it can cause sudden, dangerous swings in your heart rhythm and blood pressure. Picture trying to force a stuck drawer shut by holding your breath and shoving as hard as you can. That's roughly what's happening inside your chest, except the drawer is your own circulatory system. The American Heart Association specifically calls out snow shoveling as a physical activity that puts extra stress on the heart, especially if you're not used to regular exercise. If you do need to shovel, the advice is pretty simple. Wait about an hour after waking before you start, since that's when your risk is at its highest anyway. Stretch first. Use a small, lightweight shovel instead of muscling through with a big one. And take breaks. This isn't something to power through in one go. This last habit is less about one dramatic moment and more about a pattern that builds morning after morning. Some older adults get a drop in blood pressure after eating, especially after a large or carb-heavy breakfast, because the body redirects blood toward digestion. If your cardiovascular system can't fully keep up with that shift, blood pressure can dip, and that dip lands right on top of everything else already happening that morning. Medication timing matters here too. One cardiologist put it simply, if you take your heart medications at inconsistent times or skip a dose here and there, your body's defenses just aren't in place when that morning hormonal surge hits. It's a bit like heading out onto a bumpy road without your seatbelt fastened. None of this means breakfast or medication is dangerous on its own. It means timing and consistency matter more in the morning than at any other point in the day. A protein-forward breakfast, eaten without rushing, paired with medications taken at the same time each day, gives your body a steadier foundation for handling that high alert window. So here's what all of this really adds up to. The first few hours after you wake up aren't just the start of your day, they're a window where your cardiovascular system is working harder than usual, whether you notice it or not. Getting up too fast, shoveling snow without warming up, rushing through breakfast or medication, on their own, these all seem harmless. But stacked together, especially in a body already managing some cardiovascular risk, they add real strain during the exact hours your heart is least prepared for it. The good news is, none of the fixes here are complicated. Sit up slowly before you stand. Give your body time before anything strenuous, especially in the cold. Keep your morning routine steady instead of rushed. And if you take medication for your heart or blood pressure, talk to your doctor about timing, especially if mornings have felt harder than they should lately. Something small to think about over your next cup of coffee or tea. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.